how do we convince? How do we recognize that there's a problem? How do we argue over a conflict? And how do we bring about a resolution to such conflicts? All of this is part of our reasoning, and that's what two chaps will talk about, because across cultures, across many cultures, these two chaps have found it's not always the same way. Episode 77.
What is your reason for being here?
Well, you called me and said, come on, do this with me. Yes, I'm here. All right. No, my reason is, well, I don't have one reason. I think I have multiple reasons for being here. One is I want to continue on our path of doing a daily show. And I have been called out by some of the big dogs in our industry when they ask me, so you guys do this every day and you don't record this? And I said, yes, we do this every day. And yes, we are crazy. Maybe we are. And yet we still do it, even though the lighting is like an interrogation room. I need to change something about this. So welcome, everybody, to Chaps Many Cultures. What's your reason for being here, Brett?
Yeah, I wasn't doing anything better. So, okay. Just
all right.
At lunch, it was that time of day. Why not? We're here reasoning with each other as to why we are doing this. And but one main reason is it's a lot of fun and I'm enjoying it. And we love the audience participation part of it.
Yes, we do a lot. And the reason why we wanted to talk about reasoning, gosh, I'm done with the puns now.
Right.
It wasn't actually a pun. This was just a repetition, a useless repetition. Brett and I today, we conducted a training together, which happens once in a while. And we talked about cultural comparisons with a group of clients, actually 25-something people in a room, in a Zoom room to boot. And we talked about comparing cultures like we do most of the time when we do our work. There are many instruments and many methodologies that we can use and we can apply to explain behavioral preferences or cultural orientations. And the instrument that we use today uses a terminology that I liked. It's that they bring about three major baskets of cultural orientations, and one would be relating, one would be reasoning, and I almost forgot the third one. I think the third one was regulating. That's what it was, right? So the reasoning basket stuck with me because that tends to be one that's not easily explained, in whether it be in cultural training programs or coaching engagements or just between you and I, right? Well, how do you reason? How do you make meaning? How do you do that, Brett?
I'm a big detective fan, Sherlock Holmes especially. And would it not be said that without deductive reasoning, in many cases, their stories wouldn't be what they are? Many of them is looking at the context around things that other people might not see. So one might reason, I'm sorry, I did it. I really went there, didn't I? One might reason that someone like Sherlock Holmes as a character has a very, very wide purview when he starts to reason the what fors and whereabouts of a crime scene or something that's happened. So that's not always the case. Other people, and maybe we might argue that his offsider, Dr. Watson, may not actually have that purview because he often misses something. So hence, elementary, my dear Watson, you're not looking in the damn right place. You don't have that wide purview. So there's an example where I would say from literature, we can maybe use or debrief the characteristics of a person or a culture from those two perspectives.
I like that. So did you bring your Watson, your Sherlock hat and your...
I should have. And my pipe? No, I didn't.
Pipe? No. All right.
No. Well, it would have been a lot worse if I bought my violin, because that wouldn't have been pretty for anybody.
Mm.
Anyway.
I could have brought my... no, let's not go there. So in that metaphor, I like this quite a bit, because yes, I am too a fan of the Sherlock Holmes narratives and the many ways it has been brought onto stage or onto film and television, and I sympathize and I'm drawn to the genius that is Sherlock, which is a lot more intuitive reasoning, which is a lot more circumstantial reasoning, and not as much a linear type reasoning that Dr. Watson, the scientist, the physician, would apply. So I come from a culture where this linear type of analytical, step-by-step, process-oriented reasoning and problem solving is more prevalent, and yet I look to Sherlock as this, hey, he sees all these things, or he picks up these data points that are not necessarily obvious, and he deducts from this, then that, and how does he come up with this? So these are great stories. However, these are also prototypical ways of processing information found across the globe, right? So German culture, Central European culture tends to be more this analytical, linear type of approach. Which parts of the world have you seen the more circular approach, Brett? The focus on, let's say, integrating different perspectives into in a probably much less structured way than the analytical person.
Right. You know, you're going to find maybe some African cultures do this. There's a lot of well, if this but that type of circular reasoning that comes in, which takes into account, you know, environment, takes into account context, and it really digs into the larger picture. So the reasoning becomes a bigger picture. That if you are a linear thinking like a person like you are, then perhaps, you know, that might frustrate you in terms of how you react to it anyway. Now, it's certainly valid, and it's just a great way to approach it. I kind of like that. I mean, one might say for us Australians, we get very innovative in our reasoning and deductive, because we came up in a culture where we had to use the rare resources around us. So it became a function of our culture to, you know, tie a bit of string around it and make do with what you've got. If you've got this analytical, if you've got good supplies around you, a good group of analytical thinking with the good resources, then perhaps maybe that influences. It takes out some of the superfluous things outside. So, but I have noticed, you know, in some African cultures, certainly that's a great way. They have this wonderful ability to look around and look at a bigger concept of the world and deduct from that what might be applicable in any way in a business setting or even in a social setting. Right.
And another way to skin the cat or dice the onion here would be to compare whether we base our analysis or our thought processes on concrete experiences and data points, or whether we emphasize logical deduction, right? Again, the Sherlock versus Watson approach. I come from a data-heavy culture. What about you, Brett? Is it facts, data in your culture as well?
Not so much, no. There's a lot of, and it goes back to trust. How do we assess trust? You know, if somebody comes in with a lot of data, we go, all right, dude, great. So you know what you're talking about, but, you know, are you willing to buy a beer at the end of the day? You know, there's maybe a little bit more of a relationship side of thing. And then maybe a bigger picture of saying, then why are we doing this? Why all this data? What is the end result of it? Let's get to that. What is the bigger picture? So, I mean, if we bring up, we can start the conversation in three different levels here, and this is what this tool does. We're looking at this. Christian's mentioned linear versus circular thinking, facts, very data-driven, as opposed to a more reflective type of thinking through things culture. And then that imbues a sense of just simple, straight to the point, on point type of thinking, as opposed to a complex approach to a problem or an issue or a project. So they're the three levels that sit within this reasoning structure, and I agree with you. I think the part of the Cultural Navigator that actually does talk, this is my favorite part. Yeah.
Well, and this is where I found most obstacles in global work in many of the expatriates and global teams that I've worked with over the past decade plus, is the if you bring that image up again real quick, the simple versus complex approach. Some cultures need to think about a problem, and other cultures won't call it such. They won't call it problem. They will call it an issue, a challenge, something that came up. And the complex thinking cultures tend to look at it as a problem, as a complex of issues, a complex of challenges that are intertwined and that need to be untangled in order to find a solution. So my country, well, not just my country of Germany, but my culture, my Central European foundation of thought processing looks at or approaches it with a more complex thought process. And when I moved to the Anglo-Saxon world, especially here in North America, I found that simple solutions, quick solutions, solutions that impact us right now, that may not address an underlying issue that causes this and this and this. It's more, let's look at the symptom. What is not working right now? What can we do to fix what's not working right now? Let's find a solution now, and we'll maybe, potentially, maybe not, doesn't matter, look at the underlying root causes of the issue later on. But right now we need something that works quickly. Whereas I come from an environment where, yes, we have a problem here. I recognize this, and I can put a Band-Aid on it for now. However, that's not going to satisfy me. I want that issue not to come up again. So let's dig deep, find the root cause of that problem. Let's analyze it till the cows come home. Let's, if need be, take time to do that, dig deep into the root causes of the problem that are complex and nuanced, and take that apart before we present a quick fix solution. So two types of problem-solving approaches that often get into each other's hair and get into each other's way and are often cause for a lot of friction on global teams.
Yeah, because if you come from a culture where it's about the transaction, it's about getting to the point, closing the deal, right? Especially sales vernacular. Who really needs the details? If you think you've presented a good finite case where you can now sign on the dotted line, and then somebody comes back and wants to rehash or talk about the context, this can be frustrating. So again, it's about establishing where you fit on this, and this is a tool, that one of the tools, many that we use to establish somebody's preferred style, preferred interaction style, whether it be in business or sometimes social. So it becomes beholden on us to identify where we lay on these particular dimensions, and then say to ourselves, okay, if I do come across somebody who's going to want to rehash the issue and not close the deal when I'm ready, that's going to frustrate me. And I've got to deal with that up front. I don't want to do that live, because trying to do it live, I mean, many people can do it after a little bit of practice. But if you're caught off guard, and you can imagine that if you're showing some even subconscious outward emotion of your frustration to this person, then that could actually affect the deal, right? It affect all your interactions with your team members, if they're internal team members or external clients.
And the result may be a thought that you may not speak out loud, or maybe you will towards your colleagues that you trust, or maybe you'll just tell yourself, this other person with that behavior that was not goal-oriented my way is unreasonable.
Right.
They are not reasoning well, right?
Yeah.
And this can be a wrong conclusion. This may be where Watson reminds Sherlock, you may have deducted that erroneously, Mr. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why Sherlock loves Professor Moriarty, because they deal on the same level, right? You can see that, Sherlock loves Watson as a companion, as a friend, and values him for the different perspective he brings to the case. But ultimately, the foe, the arch enemy, is somebody who really matches wits on the same level, the same reasoning, deductive level that Sherlock Holmes does. So again, getting back to that metaphor, it is, we kind of hang out with people we like.
Well, and let's not forget that Sherlock hangs out with Watson because Watson reminds Sherlock of his brother Mycroft, who is less annoying. Well, Watson is not as annoying to Sherlock as his brother Mycroft is. So there we go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Watch those movies. Watch the TV show.
Yes. I mean, who's your favorite Sherlock and Holmes combination?
Well, I'm a bit partial to Benedict Cumberbatch, to be honest.
Yeah, he was good, but the original Basil Rathbone, Nigel Bruce from the old I just don't think you could really match Basil. It's timeless. But
I think you're being unreasonable.
Nice. Shall we sit here and reason out why?
Yeah, let's dish it out. Well, we'll talk about cricket on the way out. All right. Thanks, everybody. The Art of Reasoning. We brought some reasonable spotlights on it for you today, and we will see you again tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.